Good evening and welcome. This is a regular meeting of the Planning Board on June 16th, 2022. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given by prominently posting the amended resolution of regularly scheduled meetings of the Planning Board of Princeton for February 2022 through January 2023. A copy was filed with the Clerk of Princeton on January 7th, 2022. Legal notice on the adoption of said resolution was published in the January 14, 2022 edition of the Princeton Packet. Notice of this meeting also has been posted to the municipal website, princetonnj.gov/calendar. Pursuant to Executive Order 107, due to the ongoing state of emergency in New Jersey regarding COVID-19, notice that during the declared state of emergency, all regular and special meetings of the Princeton Planning Board will be held electronically via Zoom, was transmitted to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, and the Times, and was filed with the Clerk of Princeton on April 8th, 2020, and again on January 6th, 2021. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. During hearings on applications for development, members of the public will have an opportunity to comment and ask questions. Public comment is heard by the board after an applicant's representatives have finished their presentations and have been questioned by planning board members and staff. The planning board also invites public comment on proposed ordinances referred to this board by Princeton's mayor and council for our assessment of the ordinance's consistency with the Princeton Community Master Plan. However, please be aware that the formal public hearing for all ordinances takes place before mayor and council at a council meeting, not before the planning board. Those wishing to comment should virtually raise your hand by clicking the hand icon at the bottom of your screen, or if participating by phone, by pressing *9. Oral comments will be taken in the order in which hands were raised. We ask with respect that members of the public express your views in 3 minutes or less. Inappropriate public comment containing obscenity, hate speech, or relating to matters not before the board will be muted. Carrie, will you call the roll, please? Carrie, you are muted.
Perhaps you could call the roll, Madam Chair.
I will.
Okay, do you hear me now?
We do hear you now.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah.
Scramble to
Unstable.
find my full roster of board members.
Unstable. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're gone again. Carrie, hang on just 1 second here. Okay, here's my roster. I shall call the roll. Ms. Capizzoli.
Here.
Phil Chow.
Here.
David Cohen.
Here.
Alvin McGowan.
Here.
Owen O'Donnell.
Here.
Tim Quinn.
Here.
Mia Sachs.
Here.
Zenon Tekzarny.
Here.
John Taylor.
Here.
Nat Bodigheimer. I happen to know that Nat is not able to join us tonight. And Louise Wilson, myself, here. We have a quorum, I think is the correct next line. Announcements. Mr. Quinn, do you have any quick update on the ad hoc committee's work?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. The Ad Hoc Committee on Site Plan Review, its public comment, written public comment period ends tomorrow. So if there's anyone who would like to write with comments who missed our public meeting, tomorrow's the deadline, after which time we will schedule a meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee to talk about how we're going to report and make recommendations. So we will be scheduling something with council and with Mr. Lesko to talk about next steps. So if you know anyone who's interested, tomorrow's the deadline, and you would send your written comments to jlesko@princetonnj.gov.
Great. That's an excellent segue to Justin Lesko. Justin, do you have any quick report about master plan work?
Yes, I do. The second master plan steering committee will be June 29th at 2 p.m. That's a Wednesday, and it's going to be on Zoom. The link is up on the municipal calendar, and the steering committee will be discussing the outreach plan, and it's really going to shape what we're doing for the next, I guess, 11 and a half months at this point.
Great. Thank you for that. Any other announcements from board members or from staff? Okay, seeing none. We have minutes to consider, the minutes of the September 29th, 2021 special meeting. Mr. Cohen?
I move that we accept the minutes.
Thank you. Moved by Mr. Cohen. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Quinn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, thank you. Next up, we have a resolution / findings of fact. This was a late addition to the agenda, but it is time sensitive, and so thank you for your forbearance. This resolution relates to Terhune Development Urban Renewal LLC. Was a preliminary and final major site plan at North Harrison Street and Terhune Road, block 7401, lots 1.02 and 1.102. File number P2121-131P. Now this was a matter that where our counsel was Frank Regan, who is not available tonight. Mr. Cohen had some questions that he posed today, and Mr. Purcell, I think, addressed some of them unclear. So I should stop talking and let Mr. Cohen explain the questions that he posed in a draft, and maybe Mr. Purcell can address them. And if not, it's possible that we could reconsider this at our next meeting. David?
Yeah, so most of the questions that I had related to the parking counts, and those actually were all addressed in a revised draft that members of the board should have received this afternoon. So I don't have any remaining questions about that, but there was one question relating to circulation, particularly pedestrian and bicycle accommodations, where there were a number of bullet points about the pedestrian and bicycle facilities that were being proposed, and two of them, which seemed to be somewhat contradictory, referred to sidewalks along Terhune Road. And none of the bullets addressed sidewalks along the new road. And I suspected that one of the bullets related to which talked about a 4 and a 6 foot sidewalk. And I think that the new road has a 4 foot on one side and a 6 foot on the other side. So I was suspecting that was the issue. No change was made in relation to that bullet point. So that was where I was still concerned, and Jim, I guess, has a response to that.
Yeah, I can address that. Those were actual cut and pasted out of the engineering and zoning report. So that wording is specifically my wording. So the first bullet does relate to the road along Terhune Road, the sidewalk along Terhune Road, which is in the municipal right of way, mostly in the municipal right of way. It's partly in their right of way. The other comment was about all of the other sidewalks within the complex itself. They had varying sizes of sidewalks within the complex, 4 foot and 6 foot sidewalks, which were some of them recreational and some of them just connecting different portions of the apartment complex. So
Mhm.
those two bullets are not related to each other. And
Okay.
there
And there-
was no bullet in there related specifically to the sidewalk along the new road. But the new road sidewalk is shown on the plans. It is something that will be constructed, whether it be by Terhune Development or by the future developer.
Okay, so that explanation is helpful. And without having the text right in front of me, do you feel like the text was accurate the way that
Yes.
it was written with that last bullet? Okay.
Yeah.
So that being the case, well, I see Zenon has his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Texarney.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is this application going to master landscape subcommittee or
Yes.
so?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a date for that meeting?
Not yet.
Okay. I just was curious. Okay, thank you.
So I will move adoption of the memorandum, the revised version of the memorandum that went out this afternoon, as submitted.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Cohen. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Chow. Carrie, could we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Ms. Capizoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, I can't find my list in front of me.
I'm next.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Chow,
Yes.
He already said yes. Next is Mr. Quinn.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs,
Yes.
Mr. Texarney,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and Mrs. Wilson.
Yes.
Did I get everyone?
Yes, you did. Did you do that? from memory?
Just from memory, thank you.
Good, thank you. Next up, we have discussion of an ordinance referral. This is ordinance 2022-14 on accessory structures, accessory dwelling units, and floor area calculation and modification of definitions. If it looks familiar, it should. Mr. Lesko.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening. Like you said, this ordinance looks familiar because you heard it about a month ago. It was introduced at council, came to planning board on the 19th, and then when it went back to council this past Monday, it was reintroduced with some amendments. So I'll give a brief update of my memo that I gave and of what those amendments are. So the original ordinance that you heard a month ago contained several modifications to the zoning code regarding definitions and accessory structures, including accessory dwelling units, ADUs. The ordinance was reintroduced as staff found additional definitions that needed to be updated in order to be in line with the proposed ones and to clean up and harmonize other standards. The amended ordinance before you contains a change in the definitions of story and basement to align with the change you previously reviewed in the definitions of attic and floor area. And these are all in regards to how floor area ratio is calculated. Floor area ratio, FAR, will be measured for stories, basements, and attics that are over 5 feet in height rather than the current 7 feet. As was pointed out last time, 1/3 of the space in attics is exempt from the FAR measurement, and that will remain. So the ordinance also contains a change in the borough code, allowing swimming pools to be 15 feet from the property line in the rear and sides of a property from the current 20 feet. This is then harmonized in the township code. Swimming pools and accessory structures currently must be built within the principal building setbacks in the township. So that harmonization would change that for swimming pools and for the accessory structures overall, as you saw the harmonization last time. Lastly, the original ordinance that you saw last month allowed for ADUs without basements to have 100 square feet extra for mechanical equipment and utilities like washer and dryers, and an additional 48 square feet extra for bicycle storage or other miscellaneous storage that could only be accessed from the outside of the ADU. This change that's in the reintroduced ordinance extends this to single family and 2-family houses without basements. So then just staff finds again that this proposed ordinance supports the goals of the Princeton Community Master Plan for the same reasons as last time. Basically, it's just a little more cleanup and making sure things are in line. And those reasons were that it balances the need for new housing types and affordable housing opportunities, different stock of housing, with a sensitivity to the existing neighborhood character. And additionally, you might remember the conversation last time that the board discussed this, mentioned how the proposed ordinance changes loopholes and improves the ADU ordinance. Now that we've seen a handful of properties, ADUs either be approved or be under construction, or some, I think, I've even seen people actually sell the U-Haul truck outside of one of them not too long ago. Another thing that was discussed was that incentive for more above ground space in ADUs and now single family or 2-family houses as a strategy to help stormwater management when those basements aren't installed. And like I said, that continues on to the single family and 2-family structures. Derek's not here tonight. He's on a well-deserved vacation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Justin. David?
Not a question, just a comment. Justin emphasized that even with the headroom change, that there's a third of the attic that's exempt from floor area calculation. He did not emphasize that basements, which are currently exempt from floor area calculation, continue to be exempt from floor area calculation. But we still felt it was important to change the ceiling height definition for basements along with other stories from 7 feet to 5 feet to make it sort of clear that a basement with a house with a crawl space that might have a 4-foot ceiling height would be entitled to the bonus floor area, for mechanical and storage that Justin mentioned in his summary. So I just wanted, in case anybody in the audience was freaking out, are they getting rid of the basement exemption? That is not part of what is being done here.
Thank you for that. Alvin McGowan?
Yeah. I guess I have some general questions. One thing I noticed that you added the affordable housing language there. Was that there before? What I'm referring to.
Yeah,
Go
the
ahead.
affordable housing language was there last month for the bonus. I think it's 200 feet of space in one habitable room. That hasn't changed since last month. Is that what your
But it was
question?
new. It was new last month. That is
Yeah.
not in the original ordinance, Alvin.
Okay, because I guess I have just a general question. You can, help me out. You've added that you want the affordable housing controls, which I guess that's fine, but I'm getting confused because how are you gonna apply that? I mean, you can only have one extra unit on the property anyway. That's not gonna work for at least I don't think it's gonna work generally. You can't. It's not like you can apply the 20% set aside to this. That'll never occur here. And then you have it in the other, as you read through it, there are other restrictions as to where the units can go. There are restrictions on the size of the units. So I'm worried. How in the world are you going to achieve the goal? Wouldn't you just be better just to remove any language for the affordable housing?
Well, this is in terms of the the amount you could charge for the rent and who qualifies for it. Those are the UHAC controls that are in there, not necessarily the set asides and, space in a building.
And I just want to add that this was put in at the request of a number of our local partners, such as specifically Princeton Community Housing, which is involved with building a number of these units, and did a lot of research and conferred with the state. And that's why we added this, because they felt that under the old ADU regulations, they were not going to be able to build the affordable units, and they didn't have the mechanisms that would enable them to ensure that those units would remain affordable. And they also felt that if they were going to be affordable, they would most likely be for families. And so they wanted a little more space than we had originally allowed, which is why we're adding the bonus space, just to give the context.
Well, that's okay, but you only put one, you can only put one unit on the property, one
Correct.
access.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just an incentive, Alvin. We're not requiring anybody to do an affordable restricted ADU, but we're saying if you want to, if you're willing to do that, you get a bonus. That's basically what we're saying. You get a bonus in square footage and a bonus in the number of rooms that can be included in the unit, but it's entirely up to the developer.
And there,
Well,
I'm just the
yeah.
context of this, there were also a number of homeowners who felt that they did want to, create a unit on their property that could be used as an affordable unit. We have some very community-minded people, fortunately, in Princeton, who have large properties and were interested in creating some individual affordable unit housing on their properties. But there was interest in doing more than, more than just 800 square feet. And so the feeling was, if you're going to be that sort of a person who wants to create affordable housing, we could give you a little extra room. And actually the state ADU ordinance, which is being discussed and may be passed statewide, does allow for the, is more generous than what we passed here in Princeton. It's 1,000 square feet or 30%, as opposed to ours, which was 800 square feet or, David, remind me.
800 or 20 or 25%.
25,
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
thought, yeah. Yep.
But yeah, we don't need to get into the weeds, but the state is actually, it's not clearly more generous because it's whichever is less. It's, 30% or 1,000 square feet, and 30% of the size of the main dwelling could be very tiny.
They've argued that it is more generous, and that it's actually the reverse. I think we really shouldn't get into that, David. I think there's some confusion on the
I don't
state
like being
level.
accused of being less generous. We're being very generous with our.
Fair enough.
with our
Okay.
ADUs.
All right, suffice to say, there's some confusion on the state level that will for sure be sorted out before the statewide ordinance is passed. But as it relates to Princeton's ordinance, the impetus for this was in response to some work being done by local affordable housing partners, such as Princeton Community Housing, who are fortunately interested in creating affordable ADUs that will be rather than, that certainly meets a goal of council, which is rather than having large clusters of affordable housing, which are just essentially segregated, this provides a way of integrating affordable units into the fabric of the community in a way that's beneficial in many ways, including from a design standpoint, because most of these are don't change the streetscape. They're tucked into the house.
If a dwelling is created an ADU from the get-go as a designated affordable unit, does it stay that way in perpetuity?
Yeah, it has to be deed restricted, yeah.
Okay,
Deed restricted.
Yeah,
This was not the
sorry
case
to
in the
step on
original.
you, Alvin. Alvin
Yeah,
might not be with his,
technically.
Yeah, I do have one, two more things, but
Go ahead, go
Oh.
ahead.
small thing. You have section 10B2, section 10B-255C3. I'm just gonna go down to, there's a 3 after that. No, do you see where I am? No, you don't have the ordinance. You guys don't have the
I
ordinance in front of you.
I have it committed to memory. Alvin.
Anyway.
I have it in front of me.
Okay, anyway, there's 3A. There shall not be more than one accessory unit, dwelling unit per lot. And I'm being nitpicky. Wouldn't it be better to say only one accessory dwelling unit per lot is permitted? See what I'm saying, Justin?
I'll defer to the lawyers on this one. I don't know if that's a lawyerly thing because it was you see, the original, it was there shall be not more than one. And we changed that to there shall not be more than one. So I think it means the same, but your point is well taken.
Yeah, I think Alan's language is a little better, but since it's already in, and it does express the same intent, I would leave it the way it is. And I just wanted to comment on the deed restriction in perpetuity. That could be the case, but technically the way the UHAC rules, Uniform Housing Affordability Controls, it's a minimum of 30 years and thereafter until terminated by the municipality. So if the municipality wanted to terminate them in year 31, for whatever reason, it could do so, but I would not expect this would happen.
thank you for that.
That's it.
Okay. Thanks for those questions, and I appreciate the attention and time that council's putting into this to get it just right, and staff too, for that matter. I know that a lot of people have put a lot of thought into it. So if there are no other questions from board members or from staff, then I'll entertain a motion to find this consistent again with the master plan, or not, however you want to pose the motion.
I'll move this is consistent with the master plan.
Thank you, Ms. Capizzoli. Who would like to second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
And I take it part
Let
of the,
Alvin take it.
I take it part of the motion is to recommend adoption.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And was it Mr. Texarney who seconded? I'm sorry, I didn't see which.
I'll let Alvin take the second. He
Okay.
also spoke up.
Okay. Moved by Ms. Capizzoli, seconded by Mr. McGowan.
I'm
Do
here.
a roll call vote or
Miss-
an aye?
I'm here if you want me to do an individual.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Thank you.
Ms. Capizzoli,
Yes.
Mr. Chow,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs,
Yes,
Mr. Texarney,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. Terrific. So next up, we have two hearings. I'm hoping very much we can get all the way through both of them. So I would ask all parties to be thorough but succinct. And I know Mr. Dobromilski is going to be taking the lead from the municipal planner perspective. The first of the hearings is from the trustees of Princeton University. This is a minor site plan for Butler Interim Dining Facility, Elm Drive, block 45.01, lot 101. This is file number P2222-198P.
And Madam Chair, the board previously took jurisdiction on this matter.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dobramilty, want to get us started before we turn to Mr. DeGrazia?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Thank you, Madam
thank you.
Chair. So I'll be summarizing for my May 26th report on this. This application, as you just indicated, is a minor site plan application to construct a temporary dining facility to serve Butler College while its kitchen and servery in Wilcox Hall are being reconstructed as part of the Hobson College development. It's a temporary facility expected to be in place for 4 years. The space is conditioned and insulated. It's a tensile fabric structure, as you'll hear. I'm sure the applicant will talk about the location specifically. Yes.
Dan, excuse me, I don't think I swore you in at the last
Oh,
session. I'm
good
sure I
point.
did. So if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give and have given was the truth and will be the truth?
I do.
I thank you.
There's no new driveways, no new parking that to be constructed with this. The surrounding pedestrian paths will be maintained and restored. The dining hall will have 228 seats and 198 in an open hall, 30 in a private room. This area will be, at the end of the use, it'll be deconstructed and the Butler lawn will be restored. There are a number of large trees in the area. Most of the large trees will be preserved. A few of the smaller trees will need to be removed, 9 in particular. The property is in the E1 zone of the former township. I think in my report, I indicated section 17A, which was taken from sheet CS001 of the plan set. And I think that refers to the borough E1, so that may need to be corrected. But the zoning report correctly indicates that it was the township, former township. There are no bulk variances required for this use. The stormwater management is being addressed. There was a traffic impact review offered indicating no measurable impacts. The facility, as I indicated, is temporary and there are no bulk standards. So basically, it's a conforming use. Basically, the way I was looking at it, you could almost consider this to be like a property under construction for 4 years that goes back to what it was at some level from a viewpoint. But if this was a permanent facility, you might have some serious concerns about what they're doing. But since it's going to be there for a short time and go away, it's not permanent. I've asked the applicant to confirm some questions about utilities. Particularly the trenches that are going to be required and whether there's new fire protection utility lines that need to be installed. That we have the municipal arborist review the tree protection measures. And I think that's pretty much a summary if there's any questions.
Thanks. Any questions for Mr. Dobramilski?
Yeah, Dan, I have one. If I understood, you were saying there was a certain sheet that you got a code reference from it and it was wrong reference.
Yeah, if you look on sheet CS001, the cover sheet of the plan set, it indicates that the zoning table that's included was referencing section 17A, which I believe is the borough code. And actually, in fact, I looked, the setbacks and everything are consistent with the township code, which is where the former township code, which is where it's located. So I think that is correct. I think just the reference at the top of the chart, it may need to be recorrect.
Thank you.
Corrected.
Okay. Mr. DeGrazia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we have one other person out there, Bill Hopkins, if we can bring him in just to the group in case we need to call on him. He's one of the attendees.
Carrie, are you bringing him over?
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was that?
Bill Hopkins.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, certainly.
And as Mr. Mueller stated, the board took jurisdiction on the 2nd, and this is sort of a continuation, even though we didn't get to present any testimony yet. For the record, My name is Christopher DeGrazia from the law firm of Figuery, Drinker, Biddle, and Reith, here on behalf of the applicant, trustees of Princeton University. As Mr. Dobomilski stated, this is a minor site plan application involving an interim dining facility for Butler College. There are no variances associated with this application. Probably you'll recall that in February, earlier this year, we presented to the planning board a concept application for Hobson College, which is a new residential college that is going to be proposed on the site of the first college. At that concept application, we indicated that the dining facility that currently serves Butler College will be coming offline because it's located in the area that's being developed and redeveloped. During the time that that facility is offline, the Butler students will require, undergraduates will require a place to eat. And this application allows us to create an area where they can dine together, allow them to create an opportunity to create community, help them to acclimate to campus. So it's an important concept of the whole residential college experience. Tonight, we're proposing the facility. And as Mr. Dobomilski indicated, that when the new facility is up and running, this will be completely removed. And it's going to be restored essentially to the condition that it is today, which is a field, a grass field with some pedestrian paths. With that being said, I think I would like to introduce our first witness, University architect Ronald McCoy, to introduce our PowerPoint presentation. And then as we go from there, we have other witnesses that may chime in. Jerry, I don't know if you want us to go through them now.
Yeah, usually we swear them all in at the same
Okay.
time.
All right.
So,
Why don't I give my name and then I'll introduce others from our team and then we can do the swearing in. Does that make sense, Mr. Muller?
sure.
Yes,
fine,
that's
fine.
perfect.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Ron McCoy, University architect at Princeton University. Let's have, see, Martha Davila. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Marta Davila, a project manager at the Office of Capital Projects at Princeton University.
Andrew Smith.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Smith with Langen Engineering and Environmental Services. I was the civil engineer on the project.
Sahar.
Hi, I'm Sahar Moin. I'm from James Corner Field Operations. I'm the project manager for the landscape team.
Stone Beshu.
Hi, my name is Tom Bishop. I'm the landscape architect from James Conner Field Operations.
Bill Hopkins.
Hi, good evening. Bill Hopkins with Hanbury. I'm the project manager. Hanbury is the architect of record.
And Brian Stankus.
Good evening, Brian Stankus with WSP, traffic engineers for Princeton.
Okay, if you can all raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, so sworn or affirmed, and rather than having you go through your names once again, since Ron's already done that, I don't think we have to do it. Last time I see Mrs. Smith has a question.
No,
No.
I was,
He just liked having his hand up.
Okay,
All right.
So-
With that, let me. Yes.
Oh, Ron, I was just going to say, we're going to enter into evidence Exhibit A1, which is a PowerPoint presentation that is 31 pages. And we're bringing it up on the screen right now. This is page 1, Butler Interim Dining Facility Minor Site Plan, Municipality Princeton Planning Board Meeting, 16 June 2022. And just for the record, in addition to being university architect, Mr. McCoy is licensed in the state of New Jersey as an architect.
you want to
Thank you.
qualify him, Christopher?
Sure, to the extent he gives any architectural testimony. We'd like
Yes,
to present him as a witness.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Mr. McCoy, can you just briefly go through your credentials?
Okay. Been a licensed architect for over 30 years. professor of School of Architecture Emeritus at Arizona State University, and I've been at Princeton for 14 years.
And your
We
license
accept
is
your
current?
qualifications, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm licensed in New Jersey and other states.
Thank you. We would like to offer him as an, to the extent he provides any expert testimony in architecture.
Accepted. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, keeping with the theme of being succinct, let me see what I can go through here and be thorough and succinct at the same time. So we're going to begin with slide 2 here. This just introduces a section having to do with the context and planning principles. Slide 3 now is an illustration from our 2026 campus plan. This is another important project in our campus plan because it enables Hobson College, as Mr. DeGrazia said. This drawing from the 2026 campus plan showed one of the major campus planning features which was a focus and an enhancement on what we've called the East-West connector. And this goes from really the graduate college to the west through campus as a pedestrian pathway and connects to the Ivy Lane and Western Way neighborhood east of Washington Road. And as you have seen, a number of projects have been brought before the board for approvals. Those include the ES&C's neighborhood on the east, the UHS project, which is in the middle of this area, Bill and Jim on the western end, and then this site, which is identified as Wilson College, identified as a Wilson College site reconfiguration. That's what it was called when the campus plan was done. That site was renamed as First College. Slide 4 here is just a detailed plan that showed our intent to redevelop this site. We had not yet identified Hobson College as the building that would be located on this site, but it was intended to be a site that would be redeveloped to fit and serve a new generation of strategic initiatives on the campus. Slide 5 shows the plan of Hobson College as we presented in February of this year. You'll see here that that east-west connector comes across the courtyard, the main courtyard, and that picks up that campus planning principle that we illustrated in the prior slides. This slide also highlights Wu Hall, which is the current dining facility for Butler College. That building is a significant building of the last 50 years, and it will be retained. The kitchen and servery, which serve Wu Hall, will be part of the Hobson College, and so as the kitchen and servery are under construction, Wu Hall is not occupiable. The site plan also shows the location of the Butler interim dining to the east of the quad that is part of Butler College and right along Elm Drive. So that's how it fits into the future site. Slide 6 shows the current conditions of the site in an aerial photograph. Again, you see Wu Hall is highlighted. Wilcox Hall to the right of that, that's part of the project that will come down to make way for Hobson College. And Wilcox Hall has the kitchen that serves Wu Hall. And it also then indicates, this plan indicates the location of the proposed interim dining facility on Butler Lawn. Slide 7 is just a plan diagram that shows the existing conditions of the site. As Mr. Dobomilski said, there's a large open panel of grass here. That's where the facility will be located. It will require some removal of some of the trees that were planted as part of Butler College on the east side of the dining facility. There's a service drive, a pedestrian pathway on the south side of the site that will serve as access and service to the kitchen that's part of the dining facility. These are on slide 8, some photographs of the site. The upper left photograph is on Elm Drive looking toward the east from the southwest corner of the site along that pathway, that pedestrian pathway with the truck located there, service truck. Upper right is just panning a little bit to the left toward the northeast, looking out to the northeast. You'll see Wu Hall and Butler College in that. Bottom left continues to pan a little bit further, and you'll see looking a little bit northward toward Wu Hall and Butler College. And then the bottom right is panning even further toward Elm Drive, looking to the north toward Nassau Street and the center of town. Slide 9 is just a transition slide. We're going to talk about the building design now. Slide 10 is a detailed site plan, shows the location of the facility. This plan indicates 3 sets of entries, of doorways. The main entry to the facility will be on the eastern side, facing the quad that's part of Butler College. There is an exit only for emergency at the northwest corner of the site, and at the southeast corner of the building, there's another service entrance for the kitchen and servery area. So that's the kind of back of house entrance. And you'll see some of the existing pathways that are retained. There will be one pathway that comes through the site that will be interrupted as the temporary facility occupies the site. Slide 11 is a detailed plan. Now we've rotated the plan. The north is to the left. So we're looking with Elm Drive at the bottom of the site. You'll see at the top of this plan, the entry vestibule that comes into the building, comes into a common room. There's some restroom facilities, dining room to the left, and a private dining room in the corner here. The servery and the kitchen. The kitchen is a series of fabricated with a series of portable trailers, and the rest of the building is it's a fabric membrane over an aluminum structure, and it's an insulated fabric membrane building. These buildings are used quite often. Slide 12 is a view from that quad at Butler College looking to the west. And so you're looking at that main entrance. On the right is the window to that private dining facility. So Elm Drive would be just behind us here. Slide 13 is looking north along the existing pathway. And so you'll see how the portal comes out, and the vestibule is an entrance here. To the right is the quad at Butler College. Slide 14 just shows some of the precedents of these types of facilities. They're commonly used for exactly this type of purpose as interim temporary dining rooms. We have shown here on the top left, the top right, and the bottom left, an example of a facility at Harvard, and on the bottom right, an example of a facility at James Madison. They can be populated with with nice furniture, and we will use the furniture out of the existing Butler dining facility to use as the furniture inside this one. And then you'll see some characters given just with lighting and insulation. Slide 15 now is a interior sketch rendering of the interior of the main dining room. We're looking toward the north and toward the west. So we've just come in the building looking that direction. You'll see some floating horizontal planes that are added for acoustic performance and to bring down the scale of the facility, and then some light fixtures that bring down the scale of the facility and provide both functional lighting and a sense of intimacy also around the dining. Slide 16, we've now turned around and looking back toward the entry, which would be off to the middle left. And through the center of the drawing, you'll see the servery, and beyond that is the kitchen. Slide 17 is the servery. So we're in the servery now, looking a little bit to the northwest. And so this all sits within the same volume of the building. The lighting is different for the kind of functional needs of the kitchen, but nothing special. Now, slide 18, I'm going to transition to our landscape experts. And so I think we're going to have both Sahar and Stome say some things about the project. I'll move the slides along, and Sahar, you just tell me when you want me to advance the slides.
Great, thank you.
Before we go on, we need to get them qualified, Ron?
That's right.
They were sworn in earlier, but if you could give us a little brief summation of your license and your experience, actually.
Sure, I can start. I am not a licensed landscape architect, but I have over 10 years of experience working on a variety of projects from the campus scale to large parks across the country. And I have my master's degree in landscape architecture and my bachelor's degree in architecture.
And you're working at the same firm with, where is he?
Yes, I've been at field operations for almost 10 years now. And for 3 years prior to that, I worked for Michael Van Valkenburg Associates.
And Yeah, sure. So I'm Stormwater. I'm a senior associate at James Conner Field Operations. I have a Bachelor of Agriculture from University of Tokyo and a Master of Landscape Architecture from University of Pennsylvania. I've been practicing landscape architecture over 15 years, and I'm registered in the state of New Jersey as well as the Pennsylvania.
Okay, thank you. So we're presenting both of these witnesses from the same firm.
Yes.
Thank you. We accept your qualifications, both of you.
Thank you.
So I'll keep going. On slide 19, we have the proposed tree planting plan. As was mentioned earlier, there's about 9 trees that need to be removed in order to host the interim dining facility. That results in a replacement requirement of 11 trees. So during the timeline for the interim dining facility.
If I may.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I don't know if we formally accepted their qualifications, if we can do that.
I did.
Oh, you
I
did?
did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. So during the lifetime of the interim dining facility, we're going to be planting 11 trees to meet that requirement. The species, those are highlighted in the brighter green color there. The species that were selected with the intent of matching the surrounding landscapes around them. So along Elm Drive on the western side, to the south of 1967 Hall, as well as the quad that's within Butler College there. I think we can move to the next slide. Slide 20 is our proposed ground cover planting plan. It's fairly modest, but the intent here is to supplement and buffer from the stormwater infiltration zones. The species selected are native grasses and perennials that can tolerate the light and moisture conditions that exist around the proposed site. We can move to the next slide. For the restoration plan, as Ron mentioned, at the end of the lifetime of the facility, once it comes down, we'll be restoring the lawn to its original condition. And that includes planting 9 trees in the exact same locations where they were taken down and the exact same species. We'll restore the lawn, and the walkways will be restored in the same alignments that they were before. We can move to the next slide. Slide 22 is just a plan showing the pedestrian circulation. We're not really we're not really adding much in the way of pathways, but the site is pretty well connected. The orange lines represent accessible walkways that are directly surrounding the interim dining facility to show how it fits in with the site. The blue arrows are really just about the context and how it knits into that. The only new pedestrian walkway we're adding is at the northwestern corner, where it's simply a small egress path for the building. We can move to the next slide. Slide 23 is about the pedestrian bike walkways and what's going to be removed during the lifetime of the facility. So in the red dashed line, we're showing 2 pathways that will need to be removed for the 4 years. And the green are the rest of the pathways that will remain open and be accessible. Can move to the next slide. Slide 24 is about the servicing of the building. So on the southwestern side of the project is where deliveries and service will occur at the corner of Baker Lane and Elm Drive. And at the southeastern corner is where trash pickup will occur. And I think we can go to the next slide. Slide 25 is about the bike parking. So as part of this project, we're proposing adding 20 new bike racks for a total of 40 spaces, because each one can accommodate 2 bikes. We're placing them on either side of the main entry, and we're also highlighting in blue existing bike racks that occur nearby the site. We can move to the next slide. 26 for the paving plan, as I mentioned, we're not really adding much in the way of pedestrian walkways, but in the blue and the purple, we're indicating areas where existing pavers, cobbles and pavers will be reset to their original orientation and location. It just has to do with disruption during construction. In the orange, we are indicating the use of stabilized decomposed granite. This is for the egress walkway, for the bike racks, and for the small exterior dining area that we're proposing. And then in that orangey red color is where we plan to have exposed aggregate concrete, and that's at the main entry to the facility, and then at the service areas at the southern end of the building. Okay, move to the next slide. Slide 27, we're showing the proposed furnishing plan. Everything is utilizing Princeton University standards. As I mentioned, we're adding bike racks. We're also including a bank of trash and recycling receptacles at the exterior dining area. We're also proposing a smattering of movable chairs and lounging chairs in the lawn to help activate the space and allow for a little bit more flexibility for the students when they're grabbing food. And at the exterior dining area, there will be 6 tables and dining tables and chairs, and those will be reused from what the university already has. And lastly, at the southern end of the facility where I mentioned we have a lot of that service happening, we'll have a 6-foot-high wood fence to help screen that from pedestrians. And we'll provide gates for access. On slide 28 is just the tree removal and protection plan. So as we mentioned, there are 9 trees over 8 inches caliber that need to be removed. So that results in that 11 tree replacement requirement. And we're meeting that during the interim facility timeline.
Okay, next we're going to move to stormwater management. We'll introduce Andrew Smith, and Christopher, you want to have him qualified?
Yes. Andrew, can you give us a little bit about your education, experience, and licensing?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Delaware. I've been practicing land development engineering for approximately 5 years now, and I'm licensed in the state of New Jersey.
I'd like to present him as an expert.
We accept your qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to discuss the stormwater management approach to the project.
We're on slide 30 now.
Yes. As previously described, the project site's located on the western portion of Princeton University's main campus, which is within a drainage area which ultimately drains to Lake Carnegie. The project itself will result in approximately 0.6 acres of disturbance and approximately 0.3 acres of an increase in impervious coverage within the project boundary. Accordingly, the project will be required to adhere to the municipal stormwater management requirements for stormwater quantity, quality, and groundwater recharge. So now I'm going to go through how the project is meeting the requirements. In order to meet quality, the project's not proposing any new vehicular surfaces, so therefore the project addresses the need for not proposing any water quality measurements. The project will meet groundwater recharge requirements by matching existing annual recharge volume within the project site. And the project will propose to provide peak rate reductions for the 2, 10, and 100-year design storms by means of modifying an outlet structure within a previously approved bioretention basin located at the new residential college site. I do want to note that the Butler interim dining site does not directly drain to this basin, but it is located within the same watershed as the basin, and we felt that this was the most feasible approach to stormwater management given the temporary nature of the project, as well as the fact that the construction of a stormwater system adjacent to the project site would result in additional land disturbance and additional tree removal. Looking at the site itself, we propose to install perforated pipe stone infiltration trenches surrounding the proposed dining structure, which will capture flow generated by the project site and discharge it into the campus stormwater system. That system is the same system in which the new residential college basin ultimately discharges to, which both sites ultimately end up at the same point, which is at Lake Carnegie. I would like to note that based on the basin modifications, there will ultimately be a reduction in flow seen at the discharge point at Lake Carnegie. And based on the magnitude of the dining project, we don't anticipate any adverse impacts to the campus stormwater sewer conveyance system. And that is a general overview of the stormwater management approach for the project. I would just like to also note that we did receive Mr. Scupian's review letter today, reviewing the stormwater management approach, and we take no exception to the comments provided.
And Andrew, real quickly, when we remove this facility, the interim dining building itself, The improvements we're making downstream, so to speak, at Residential College will remain in place. So it would be improving current conditions overall, even though we will have
Correct.
that development.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. That really is the end of our presentation, and we're available to answer any questions that you might have. I'm going to stop sharing. I can pull up any pages or images if the board wishes.
Great, thank you. Questions for Mr. McCoy or any of the witnesses from board members? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else's hand up. Somebody's hand popped up and then went down.
There we go.
Ah, there we go.
There we go.
Owen, go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thank you very much. Mr. McCoy, you mentioned that the cooking facility, the cooking area, the kitchen area will be trailer types.
That's right.
Okay, and that the actual dining facility is the tensile fabric structure. How are those two going to connect? And is there going to be a firewall or something between them, just in God forbid anything happens in the kitchen? I know there's the sprinkler system throughout, but in order to prevent any catastrophe sweeping through.
I'm going to ask Martha to answer that question.
Sorry, who do we have? Martha?
Yes, she's trying to.
Diavia,
She was.
but she's still on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Yeah, and I was trying to get.
There we
to
go.
There you go. You've been sworn in. Can you just state your name and your title again for the record?
Yes, my name is Marta Davila. I am a project manager in the Office of Capital Projects at Princeton University. I am a registered architect in the state of New Jersey.
We'd like to, your license current?
Yes.
We'd like to present as an expert in that area.
We accept your qualifications. Thanks.
So, so the fire code and the building codes are now requiring us to provide a separation between the two zones. We are fully sprinklered both in the large dining area and in the trailers.
Okay, and I believe that there were 110 sprinklers. Do you have a ratio of, how many in each section?
I couldn't tell you for sure what the number of sprinklers in each section is, but we're code compliant with all the coverages for the heads.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
I have a few questions. I wonder whether this structure is going to be as white as it looks like on all of the renderings, both outside and inside. It looks, not only, very large with a very, very large ceiling and cool lighting and everything, but so white. So I'm a little concerned about its appearance from the outside and also the degree to which it might light up the sky at night and that kind of thing. Can you address those questions?
Yes, it is intended to be, not exactly the way the renderings are, but it is a white fabric structure. It would be probably similar to all the structures that we use on campus for events regularly: tents, reunions, class days, visiting first-year students. So it's pretty common on campus. I mean, it's ubiquitous on campus, obviously for reunions, and it's like the dome that we have at the football stadium, which is also the same color. We have not measured the reflected light or let's say reflected light, because it'd be very little transmitted light. But I can pretty much guess that it's not going to cause any light pollution. But if we want, we could report that. We could come back and work with staff to report on the lighting conditions.
It's also well within the campus, so it's not near
Right.
any outside neighborhoods, or it's not anywhere close. And given the height, compared to other buildings, you're not going to see it anywhere offsite.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about people who live on campus. And their, view of it. And I also couldn't tell, and maybe I wasn't looking closely enough, but is there any natural light that enters this structure? For folks who are.
Yes. It's been carefully designed with windows, so there are views out and views in. We want it to be, it's not ideal, obviously, to be in a temporary structure, but as I showed from those precedent images at Harvard and other places, it's they're the kind of fun structures actually for short term, and plenty of natural light and views and vistas will come into the building.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. I also, I want to ask the university to please plant native species, substitute native species for the at least 2 non-native species that are in the plan, including when the structure is removed and you're replanting the trees that are removed to make room for it. It's an opportunity to replace non-native species with native species. And I know that you've got these other species in, long established as well as new landscapes, but I just feel, and I know that others on the Environmental Commission and such, and Shade Tree, feel strongly that these trees that just don't provide any habitat value to birds and pollinators, everything that we can do to give them resources they need is worth doing. So I would ask that you use native species and not the ginkgo and not the other tree whose name I can't pronounce but ends with japonica.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you. I should have made it a simple question rather than put my little ride my hobby horse for 2 minutes. Are there other questions from board members? And if not, I'll open this up to the public. See if
We have 12
public
members
comment.
in attendance and no one has raised their hand yet.
Okay, so now is an opportunity for members of the public to raise your hand and speak to the applicant on the record if you wish to do so. So I would ask anybody who does wish to speak to please raise your hand, and then we'll bring you over. And I'm still not seeing any hands raised. Going once. Going twice. Okay, I'm closing the public comment portion of the meeting. There's no public comment on this application tonight. Other questions or comments from board members or a motion?
I'll move approval.
Mr. Quinn moves approval.
Second.
Mr. Cohen seconds. Ms. Phillip, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Capizoli?
Yes.
Madam Chair, do we first want to go through the conditions?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking to myself, I'm moving too fast here. There's something I'm missing. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Mueller. I apologize.
No problem. Let me go through them quickly.
Yep.
One is a substitution of the native species trees for the 2 non-native that you just talked about and that Ron agreed to. The second is the usual condition we have that Exhibit A1 be consistent with, that the plans be consistent with A1 and the testimony. And then just going through our experts' reports, Dan, that sheet CS001, the zoning table should refer to the township, the former township code rather than the borough code. Dan, where you say in your point 5, the plans include, I'm sorry, for your 5, the plans include tree protection measures which should be reviewed by the municipal arborist. I assume we want that as a condition, correct?
Yes, and then also just the confirmation in 4 that there are no additional utility trenches or fire protection trenches or improvements that are required, that, site related.
Okay, do we need to do anything on your number 6?
6, I think, was addressed with the condition about the native species that you already have.
Okay.
And
And then,
there were a couple, you're maybe going to go to it. There were a couple from engineering and zoning.
yeah, I was going to go through those now. Just going to the report from Jim and Derek. In 2.0, it talks about the site will be restored to its original condition. Doesn't sound like we need to put a condition in with respect to that. Or should we? Jim, you want to comment on that? And I need to swear you in.
Sorry, my computer's operating a little slowly, as
Okay.
am I, just so everybody knows.
Let me switch.
Jim, you need to be sworn in.
I just want to apologize for my throat. I'm homesick with COVID, so
Oh, geez, I'm sorry to hear that.
my
Right.
hand is raised. So
Okay, do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give will be the truth?
I do.
So sworn or affirmed.
Can
in
we also
terms-
swear in Dan Weissman since Dan
Sure,
picked
absolutely,
up the,
Dan. Yeah, if you could raise your, do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give will be the truth?
I do.
So sworn or affirmed. Okay, at the end of 2.0, you talk about the site will be restored to its original condition.
yeah, that
Doesn't
does not
sound-
need to be a condition.
Yep, exactly. Okay. And then under, this is page 3 of 6 of the report from Jim and Derek. E, this is surface water drainage, 1 grading plan, potential low point, approximately 5 feet east of the proposed dining facility. Staff recommends re-examining and grading in this area for potential stormwater runoff issues. I take it we want to put that in, Jim?
I'll leave that to Dan Weissman.
Okay, Dan?
It's a joint effort here.
Yes. Yeah, I think it should be addressed.
Okay, fine, I'll put it in as a condition. The site restoration plan, which is your E2, I don't know, they've,
Jerry, you muted
Oh,
yourself.
Jerry, you're muted suddenly.
You must have hit the space bar.
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sure I did. For E2, talking about site restoration, I don't see the need for a condition there. Jim and Dan, what's your opinion?
I don't. Dan?
I think it was addressed.
Okay. The applicant should address the delivery operation and provide measures to ensure the safety of pedestrians, cyclists, and other motor vehicle traffic. As noted in the traffic report, this is on page 4 of 6 under I. What, if anything, should we do by way of condition with respect to that?
Dan, I'll let you have that one too. This is regarding
there was
the
concerns that were-
deliveries.
Yes, there were concerns regarding the deliveries backing up.
Oops.
Brought up in the traffic report. I think it would be good to address how that is going to be
Dan,
taken care of.
you're garbled.
So I think that should be a good.
So I'm
Yeah,
not,
Christopher, I believe you had indicated to us
So
that
it
was addressed.
There was
Hey, Dan, you're breaking up. Your internet connection is not good.
yeah,
Christopher,
so,
you were about to say something.
yeah, I was just gonna say that, as you can imagine, safety is a top priority for the university. This is a restricted access road. It goes through a security gate. We were looking at and evaluating, and by the way, the comment was not on a municipal report. It was our own report that we want to focus on and make sure that this area is safe. And we're gonna look at the operations closely as we put it together. But I have to say that there's similar movements today on that path with the same type of operation with the trucks, and they're and they've been safe and haven't had any problems.
So would you be willing to allow a condition that says that you provide us with an operations plan that is acceptable to us?
I don't think that's an issue, Mr. McCoy.
I think that would be fine. I think, but just to reiterate what Christopher said, we have loading docks throughout the campus that do have similar movements and do intersect with pedestrian pathways the way this one does. And we'd be happy to submit an operational plan. We think that probably some careful signage to alert people to the kind of change in traffic patterns might be one of the first and best things that we can do, but we will certainly work with you on that.
Okay.
Our biggest concern was the number of deliveries expected at this location on a daily basis. So
Right.
Right.
And just to remind the board, I mean, it's certainly the interaction with the applicant and seeing what they're willing to consent to is worthwhile and should be done. But ultimately, it's the board's decision on the conditions. And if a particular applicant doesn't agree to a condition, that doesn't mean we can't do it. The board could do it. So I just wanted to remind the board of that again. It doesn't apply here. And then under, this is still page 4 of 6 of Jim and Derek's report. K, staff comments, the applicant should address the provisions for disposal of the proposed interim facility upon removal from the site. No problems with it. I assume we should put that in. Jim?
These are rented facilities.
I'm sorry?
Everything's
These
rented?
are rented. These are rented facilities.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like that might not be necessary.
Then that's not necessary.
Yep.
I
Okay.
was not aware they were rented.
And then the usual about the construction cost estimate, which is 5.0, and the approvals of higher level jurisdictions in 5 and 5. And then your 6, I think we've already covered that. So that's it for Jim and Derek's report. And then for Joe's report, Mr. Smith already agreed to the 3 provisions which are on page 2 of his report. I can go through them. I think they're pretty self-explanatory and actually quite technical. Should I go over them, or everybody willing to just take them as is?
The stormwater report?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have no.
Mr. Smith
He
already agreed.
testified that they don't take issue with anything in Mr.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah, the only thing I was asking is if the board wanted
Kupian's
to read them back, but I don't know that that's necessary.
I don't think that it is.
Okay, and that's all I have.
May I just ask that when you do decide which species of trees to plant instead of the non-native species, that you just let Mr. Dobromilski, who is our consulting planner and also consulting landscape architect, know what your choices are?
Well,
Yes, we will
do you want
definitely do
that
that.
subject to Dan's approval?
Yeah, yes,
Okay,
Yes, we would definitely do that.
thank you.
okay. That's all I have.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember now who moved and seconded. I did not
I
make a
moved
note of it at the
and
time.
I will, and my motion includes everything that Jerry said.
Okay, everyone, I'm back.
Oh,
I'm so
Hi,
glad,
Carrie.
Carrie.
Oh, my goodness, it's been horrible.
It's been a challenging night for more than one person in the terms of internet connection. Moved by Mr. Quinn, seconded by Mr. Cohen. Carrie, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Capizoli,
Yes.
Mr. Chow,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Mr. Cohen,
Yes, sorry.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Mr. Texarney,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and Mrs. Wilson.
yes.
Motion
Wait,
carried.
I think.
Mia,
wait,
Mia
I think-
had left, Mia
Oh.
left temporarily.
Yeah,
She join us for the next one.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you all very much.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a hearing for Judson C. and Cynthia Oaks Linville. This is a minor subdivision, a lot line adjustment with variances at 1075 and 1087 The Great Road, block 2001, lots 18 and 19. This is file number P 2121-167 MS.
Madam Chair, Ryan Kennedy has his hand up in the attendees. I believe he needs to be brought over.
Thank you. Carrie, can you make that happen, please?
I will.
Oh, there he is.
And if I may, proof of publication and service are in order. The notice is adequate and the board has jurisdiction.
Great. Mr. Dobromirski
Have to
is
be sworn
here.
in.
Jerry, you want to swear Dan in,
Yep,
please?
Dan, if you can raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
So sworn or affirmed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on this application, there was a report on May 13th, 2022. This is a rather simple application, but rather complicated in explanation, I think. So I tend to think that it may get involved a little bit here. If you think I'm being too detailed, just stop me. But I'll try and go through it and summarize what's going on. The application is requesting a lot line adjustment, which is a minor subdivision in this case, between two existing single-family residential properties with existing non-conforming bulk conditions. This lot line adjustment will not eliminate the nonconformities. There's no new construction or change of use proposed with this subdivision. The applicant has indicated that the lot line adjustment is requested to eliminate the need for an easement related to car parking. The two lots were previously subdivided from a larger lot. The present lot number 18, located in front closer to the Great Road, exhibits a typical rectangular shape and near conforming size, 2.99 acres versus 3 acres required. The side, rear, and front parking setbacks, as well as the MIC and the front lot, are currently non-conforming. Lot 19, the back lot, it was established with a flag shape. The pole portion of the flag currently measures 100 feet in width or frontage, which is conforming, as it must be demonstrated that 50 feet was possible when it was subdivided. Although the drive for this lot is not actually located within the flag portion of the lot. Lot number 19, the back one, is currently non-conforming as well. It measures 2.19 acres and 4 acres is required in the zone, 6 acres because of when it was created as a flag, there's a requirement that the lot be larger due to the fact that the flag lot was created in the zoning. The present lot depth is 201.7 versus 300 required. The front setback is 39% and 39.7 versus 50 required. The front parking setback is 19.2 feet versus 40 feet required. Those aspects are non-conforming. So both lots are presently under single ownership, but the front lot number 18, which is 1075 Great Road, was on the market for sale at the time when I did this report. Shifting the lot line between the front and rear lots to bring a portion of the parking area located on the front lot, number 19, and behind the lot number 18 garage onto lot number 19 will eliminate the need for a parking easement. However, since the access to the rear lot still occurs across lot number 18, the front lot, there will still be required to have an easement for that driveway, since it's not in the pole portion of the back lot. The adjustment of the lot line may create a new variance for building height to setback ratio for the garage on lot 18. The applicant noted that in their application, and we're asking that they confirm exactly where that is that they're asking for that new variance. This subdivision will modify the pole portion of flag for lot number 19, the back lot. That pole will be reduced from 100 feet width at present to 20-foot width, further reducing the size for the lot from 2.19 acres to 1.55 acres, whereas 4 to 6 is required as I indicated. And the lot number 18, the front lot, will be increased in size to 3.64 acres, whereas 3 acres is the minimum required. It is noted that the water line for the rear lot is located within the existing pole portion of the lot, but with this adjustment will now be outside of that and will be required to have an easement. The overhead electric service occurs within the pole and will remain in the pole portion of the lot. The applicant has indicated that from a public perspective, there will be no change, which seems to be accurate since these lots are heavily vegetated and significant offset occurs from the road and the adjacent properties to the structures on these lots. And they're contending that thus there is no public harm with this adjustment. Furthermore, the applicant has indicated that the purpose of the municipal land use will be advanced due to the provision of adequate open space on the properties, promoting a desired visual environment. This statement must be demonstrated since the lot sizes are going to change. I'd like to have them provide some testimony to specifically what they're meaning by saying that. Since lot number 18 presently exceeds the MIC, and most likely due to an extensive area of stone and gravel, which occurs on that lot, which has no apparent use at present, and this is located kind of close to Great Road, it would seem appropriate to me that to look at the possibility of reducing some of that gravel area and converting it back to landscape area, since it does not provide for access. And then there were some conditions and recommendations, or there was checklist waivers and recommendations in the land use engineer and zoning officer report, which I concur with and have no additional comments on. So hopefully that, I know it's kind of confusing, so I think when you see the picture, hopefully that'll help.
Exactly. I expect that, yes, a good bit of what you said will be more clear for folks when they see pictures if they haven't already looked. David Cohen?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask the applicant as they make their presentation to focus on this rationale of being able to avoid the parking easement, because I was just looking at the drawing and it seemed to show that there's a gravel area to be removed. That my first glance, I was thinking that this gravel area was to be the parking area and it was being shifted to be in lot 19, but I just noticed this little tiny note saying that it's gravel area to be removed. So I don't understand where the parking is supposed to occur and how this easement is being avoided. So if you can just make that clear in your presentation, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Madam
So,
Chair,
yes, sir.
Madam Chair, can you hear me okay? It's Judd Linville.
I can, yes.
So I have been on since the beginning. I heard the watchword is
Yeah,
thorough but succinct.
Judd, we'll have a second chance in a second to start if you want to just hold off for a minute.
But I appreciate that you were listening to that. I think I know where you were going. And it was really to make sure that if at all possible, we get through your this particular application this evening. And I don't want to prejudge, but I just didn't want to, find ourselves at 10:15 and just starting to look at this application. So are you represented by Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kennedy.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And I'll say first, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But I do believe that each, and I apologize for him to have to use 1,000 of them to get through his memo, but Mr. Dobromelski's analysis or explanation is correct. The Linvilles, who you hear from in a minute, have been the owners of both of these lots. The front portion as well as the rear flag. They're unique, I suppose, in that they've owned them independently as well, living in one, while the prior owner that they purchased from lived in the other lot. So they've experienced this both as owning both and as owning one of two. So what we will, what you'll be hearing is the reasons why, as they prepare to sell one of the lots, a reconfiguration slightly makes sense for them and for their future neighbors. And generally, by moving the rear lot line, creates more usable space on the, for a flag lot, you've got a flag pole and you've got a flag portion of it. The flag portion is usable for the house. The pole is supposed to be driveway. And as you heard, in this case, the driveway is a shared driveway that doesn't even use the flag pole. So what we'll be doing is shrinking the width of the pole, adding some usable lot area to the front lot, and then moving the common dividing line between the two lots towards the street by 20 feet, creating more room for the back owner, essentially more usable room. And that, to Mr. Cohen's question, achieves a couple of things. One, it moves areas that can be used for parking onto their lot, so that some of that will be removed. It is excess area, but that is also, you'll see through a picture where that parking will go. So we're creating more usable area in the back, as opposed to kind of wasted area in an excessively wide flagpole, which you'll also see has been used extensively for a beautiful garden associated with the front property. So this will allow the garden to pass ownership to the front house where it should go. It can be used and enjoyed, and the back property to be big enough. Obviously, it's not complying now as to lot area. It will not be compliant later on, but the usable area increases. That will allow them some room for parking. Also, we'll be able to remove some of that impervious coverage as well. It's just more back there than is necessary. And while the houses will remain physically in the same location, nothing is being proposed to be changed or moved. By moving that lot line, it does create the opportunity for a better buffer between the two properties. Having it as close as it was to the rear home is a potentially unwieldy situation that, by balancing out that space a little bit more, will make for better neighbor relations going forward. So tonight, first I'll thank my colleague, John Mayer. We too had some minor technical things tonight. I'm on an iPad and can't run the PowerPoint. So I want to thank John for advancing things for me. First, we'll hear from the property owner, Mr. Linville, and then from our engineers. So Judd, if you could unmute yourself, and I'll ask the board attorney to swear you in.
If you could raise your right hand. Maybe we could take down what's on.
Yeah, John, if you want to stop the screen share for a minute, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Linville, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. If you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
So I sworn to affirm. Please state your full name and spell your last name.
Judson C. Linville, Linville.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. So Judd, if you want to just quickly introduce yourself to the board, and I think we were about to get to answering one of those questions a minute ago, and now's a good time to perhaps do that.
I'd be glad to, and thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for good evening, planning board members. I actually have not been able to listen to one of these in the past, and I appreciate the service and all that you do. So my wife, Cindy, and I have been members of the Princeton community for about 30 years. We purchased 1075 Great Road just about this time in 1994. We subsequently bought 1087 in 2014 from the original owners of 1075. I won't even tell you that whole story, but very, very good neighbors who we care deeply about. So we own both properties that are adjacent to one another. The application we've got before the board is a modification of the property lines between the two homes. We are not, I just want to point out, we're not seeking to modify the homes or create a new structure, simply lot line changes. And as was described in some detail before, just two simple things we're trying to accomplish. On 1087, provide additional parking. So to Mr. Cohen's concern, that gravel's not being removed. We're just trying to provide additional parking to 1087, which is how that space had been used, even though it was our property when we were renting it. The
Okay,
other, as was
Mr. Linville, if I could just interrupt for a second. Let's get what's being shown on the screen.
Apologies. We have one slide deck of, I just see the picture was worth a million words here. So we have this added as an exhibit. We're on page 2, essentially, of
Okay,
our.
and we'll mark that as Exhibit A.
Thank you.
Okay.
We good to proceed, Mr. Mueller?
Yes.
So 1087, simply trying to provide more parking space to that home. The second objective for 1087 is to provide more usable space in that backyard to the north of the home and the property. For 1075, trying to preserve a garden that's been there that predates us, actually. Mary Bundy and Bill Bundy, who own the property, who moved to 1087, that built a wonderful garden there that we have kept up. And that space that we've used is largely unusable for 1087 because, as was described earlier, the pole of the flagpole is quite narrow. So in summary, really just updating the property lines according to how the homes use the land today. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Judd. And ultimately, you're thinking you'll sell one of the properties and remain here as a neighbor for the time being. That's your hope.
Absolutely. And my 3 daughters who grew up in the house are making sure that we're going to do that. So 1087 is on it, but 1075 is the primary residence where we raised our 3 daughters.
Wonderful. Happy to take any questions. I see Mr. Cohen's hand up.
Yeah, David?
Yeah, so I just wanted to be sure that I heard Mr. Linville correctly. I heard him say that that gravel area is not going to be removed and that will continue to be used for parking, what's shown essentially behind the garage, the existing garage.
Yes, that's correct. There were 2 gravel pieces that were discussed in the opening remarks. I can't find the fellow who, Mr. Dabrowski, but the space to the east of 1087 between the home and the garage, the way the property lines work now, 1087 owner would need to drive just into their garage, would not have any additional parking space. So what we're trying to do is create parking space for them to the east of our garage.
Okay, so I just want to let you know that that testimony is contrary to the drawings that were submitted, which call out that gravel area is being removed. So that's a correction that'll have to be made to the drawings.
Will there be
Well, we'll have our
renderings
engineer.
further along in the slide deck that
There
show?
are. We will
Thank
have
you.
our engineer clarify that in a minute. Certainly understand the question. Want to make sure we're absolutely clear, and we'll have our engineer do that.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Any other questions from board members for Mr. Linville? Okay, thank you, Mr. Linville.
Next, I'd like to invite our engineer who's on this evening to briefly, I know he's testified before this board before, but to introduce himself and so that he be sworn in and then provide his credentials to the board.
If you could raise your right hand. Don't see.
May
you.
I suggest that we swear in
Here.
all of your witnesses at one
This
time?
will
and
be
then we can-
the last one. But
Okay.
and John, if you could want to take the screen sharing down, please, so that we can see whether that Eric's hand actually is raised.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes,
So sworn. Please state your full name and spell your last name.
certainly. Eric Rupnarain, Rupnarain.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So Eric, if you could give the board the benefit briefly of your experience and credentials, so I can request that you be added, recognized as an expert here this evening.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the states of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I've been licensed in New Jersey since 2003. I graduated from Villanova University in 1997 with a bachelor's in civil engineering. I also received a master's in civil engineering from the same university in 2001. Since graduating, I've practiced almost exclusively in land development, both for private commercial developments and residential development. I've testified in various municipalities in Mercer County, Middlesex County, Hunterdon County, Somerset counties. I've been before this board a couple of times. I think as recently as I believe about a year ago.
Thank you. We accept your qualifications.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. John, if you want to go back to slide number 2, we can start our explanation of the lay of the land here, if you will.
And Ryan, maybe somebody could just put in the record what the name of this slide deck is, if there is a name. Is it Linville Lot Line Adjustment 1075 and 1087 Great Road? Is that the name of the slide deck?
From a file perspective, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. I guess we probably would have just called it slide deck. So it might be different on when we email it or.
Yeah, because I thought I saw a title page, but okay.
All right, John, if you want to go back one, I apologize. I thought you meant the file name. John, if you want to go back one screen.
Okay. Yep. Great. Thank you.
Apologies. You're elevating the our front page to the status of title. I apologize. I was thinking you meant file name.
Okay.
So Eric, if we could go to the second slide, Eric, I think Mr. Linville did a good job of explaining the current conditions, but here we actually have, if you want to just take the board through the current situation with the 2 lots that are in question, but I guess the third lot that also shares the current driveway.
So currently, what we're looking at that's titled existing conditions shows the 2 properties that are currently a part of the application in front of the board tonight. The boundary that's shown in blue, that is the rear lot. That's lot 1087. And what's shown in the red, that is 1075 Great Road. Presently, the driveway that serves both 1087 and 1075 is located on lot 1075. And right below where it says 1075 Great Road, you can see where the driveway comes in at about slightly south of the middle of the lot 1075. That driveway not only serves 1087 Great Road and 1075, but it also serves the existing lot, which is located in the easterly corner, southeasterly corner of 1075 Great Road. So currently there are 3 lots, 3 residential dwellings that are sharing that existing driveway access that's presently located on 1075 Great Road. The applicant's proposal tonight is that the track boundary that's shown in blue, the flagstaff is located directly to the north of 1075 Great Road. That existing flagstaff is 100 feet wide, and it extends along the entire northerly boundary of 1075 Great Road. The applicant's proposal is to reduce the width of that flagstaff from 100 feet to 20 feet. And that reduction, or that area that's being removed from 1087 Great Road, will be added to 1075 Great Road, thereby increasing that lot size. In addition to that, the applicant is also proposing easterly lot line, which would be the rear lot line of 1075 Great Road and the front lot line of 1087 Great Road, to shift that lot line by 20 feet to the north towards, to the west towards Great Road. And that change will slightly reduce the acreage of 1075 Great Road. The net result of shifting those two lot lines around is that 1075 Great Road will be increased from 2.99 acres. That lot size will increase to 3.64 acres. And 1087 Great Road, again, which is the rear lot, that lot size will be reduced from 1.24 acres to 1.36 acres.
Great. If we could move to the next slide. So slide 3 here, this is another depiction of the existing conditions.
Correct. And this plan is the minor subdivision plan that was submitted with the application to the board. Again, what's shown in red or highlighted in red, that is the existing tract boundary of lot 1075 Great Road. The bluish gray color that's highlighted, that is the existing boundary of 1087 Great Road. And to the east or the rear of 1075, that strip of property that is hatched, that is the portion of the lot line from 1075 that will be added to 1087 Great Road. And to the north of 1075, to the north of the red, that diagonally hatched portion of the property, that is the area from 1087 that will be added to 1075 Great Road. Their applicant's current proposal does not change anything else on the property. It doesn't make any additions to the change of the buildings. Both dwellings and the garage, the accessory structures will remain the same. The existing driveway will remain in its current form and will continue to serve all three properties, both 1087 and 1075, and also lot 17 to the southeast. The applicant's proposal makes better use of the existing conditions. Presently, the existing flagstaff that's about 100 feet wide, it's really somewhat useless other than providing access. It doesn't provide a building envelope where anything could actually be constructed within that area. And currently, the slope from the Great Road to the property, that area is relatively steep and requires and would require a lot of excavation in order to build a driveway to serve 1087 Great Road. What the applicant's proposal is to make this lot line adjustment, some of the improvements on 1087 that's presently used by 1075, which would be the gravel area in front, that parking area, a portion of it is currently on 1087. This lot line adjustment will ensure that that parking area is fully within the boundaries of the new reconfigured lot 1075. Additionally, as Mr. Linville indicated previously, the garden currently that's within the flagstaff will now be moved onto the lot that's 1075 Great Road. So the changes that the applicant is proposing, although it doesn't affect any of the structures, makes better use of the existing areas that's available. The lot line change provides more usable area for 1087 by adding about 80 feet to the width of the property, 80 feet of which realistically cannot be used by 1087 because of where it's located and the setback requirements. The easterly lot line change, which would be the northerly lot line adjustment of 1087, that adds another 20 feet of property to 1087 Great Road, giving that property more front yard, again, more usable space that can be used for other purposes within that lot. In essence, what the applicant is doing is taking two lots that are somewhat irregular, primarily 1087 Great Road, and creating two slightly larger rectangular lot configurations, which allows for more usable areas within both properties. This change, however, will create one variance as a part of the applicant's proposal. And that variance is associated with the detached garage, which is the structure that's located to the east of the building on 1087 Great Road. Currently, that structure is conforming to the building setback to height ratio. In this particular zone, which is the RB zone, the setback to height ratio that's required is 1 to 1.5, and that garage presently is conforming. The change that the applicant is proposing moves that easterly lot line closer to the garage. And the current height of the structure, or the current configuration of the roof line of that structure, will change that setback to height ratio from 1 to 1.5. In essence, it will be reduced to 1 to 0.97. And there's a portion, which is the easterly corner of the gable of that garage, that will actually be within that diagonal projecting plane. And that is one variance that this application creates, and it's relief that the applicant is requesting of the board tonight.
John, if you can go to the next slide, we can show some of the existing use of the oversized left pole. So what are we looking at here?
So what's shown within these two slides, this is the area that's currently within that 100-foot wide strip that belongs to 1087 Great Road. This, in essence, is the flagstaff. It currently is not being used as a flagstaff. There is no driveway access within this flagstaff that's utilized by 1087. Essentially, this portion of 1087 is currently being used by 1075. With the second slide, which is to the right-hand side of the screen, that's what's shown and highlighted within that fenced-in area is the garden that's shown on the subdivision plat. That garden area that's presently used by the Linvilles will now be moved onto the property that they are currently occupying.
We go to the next slide, which I think will show the parking.
And again, so this particular slide shows the garage, or the accessory structure that's located on 1075 Great Road. And the corner of the garage that is right up, that's approximately where it says 1087 parking on 1075. That is the corner of the garage that's actually going to be projecting beyond that setback to height, that building setback to height ratio. That is the corner that requires the variance relief that I spoke of earlier. This area also shows where the parking for 1087 is located on 1075. Essentially, the one car, or the SUV that's shown, that is the area that's being adjusted. And that is the area currently on 1075 that is used for parking by 1087. And the adjustment of the lot line will actually move that lot line. So in essence, the car that we're looking at right now that sits on 1075 Great Road, that car will now sit on property that belongs to 1087 Great Road.
And Eric, if you could perhaps try to clarify if, I mean, I think on a future slide, we'll show where that line is, but approximately where that arrow is there to the right will be transferred to the back and allow for parking to the left. And will there be any change to that gravel area to the left of that line between there and the garage?
No, the applicant is proposing to keep this particular area as it is. The plans do reflect that that gravel area was supposed to be removed, but the applicant's proposal tonight is to maintain that area in its current form. And the plans will have to be revised and updated to reflect that change, that the gravel area will remain.
So with apologies, everyone, that note on the plans was incorrect, and that the area will stay exactly as it is in its current condition.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen, good pickup on that. Apologies for that. That was that should have been clearer.
Thank you.
If we go to the next slide. So here, Eric, this is the after condition. Is that? I'm sorry, this is the before condition again, but showing the, as you explained before, the awkward and largely unusable to the rear lot flag that's neither being used as a driveway, but in fact is being used as a garden for their neighbor, and then a undersized usable area of the back.
Correct.
To the next slide.
Yes.
So here finally we have the picture that is probably worth 1,000 words, that shows what is being moved from where to where and where the new lot lines will be. So if you could take the the board through that, please.
So this particular exhibit, again, shows the lot line adjustment that the applicant is seeking from the board. The top of the slide, or the northerly portion of the property that's identified in the diagonal hatch, that area is about 31,553 square feet. That is the portion of what currently belongs to 1087 Great Road that will be added to 1075 Great Road. To the east, or to the rear, which would be to the front of the dwelling on 1087 Great Road, that checkered hatch portion that's shown, that's approximately 3,400 square feet. That is the portion that's currently subject to the existing parking easement. And that is the portion of 1075 Great Road that will be added to 1087 Great Road. Again, as I mentioned previously, this lot line adjustment creates a larger rectangular usable area for 1087 Great Road. And likewise, the larger lot for 1075 Great Road moves a lot of the current improvements that is presently being used by the owners of 1075, by the Linvilles. It moves it onto the property that they will continue to own and that they will continue to reside in.
So Eric, I know the municipality's planning consultant in the beginning kind of posed the question of, if the concern of the applicant is the usable areas of the lots, how can we say that, well, by making the back lot smaller in square footage, are we giving them more area or causing them to have more open space? And is it that by adding that 3,400 square feet of usable space that's close to the house and that creates more separation between the two dwellings, that it's the usable area rather than the overall lot area that we're talking about?
Correct. Essentially, even though 1087 there's going to be a net reduction in the square footage of the property and the acreage of the property, we are creating more usable space. Essentially, the flagpole for 1087 presently is not being used and cannot really be used for any particular purposes for 1087 Great Road, other than access, which presently it's not being used for access. And access to Great Road through that area will be very difficult given the grades along Great Road and the amount of excavation that would be required in order to build a new driveway. Essentially, we're taking areas that are usable from 1087 that's presently being used by 1075, and we're adding it to that lot. So we're increasing the usable area of 1075. However, that reduction and the addition of that 3,400 square feet of land from 1075 to 1087 creates a larger rectangle, basically a larger area on 1087 that can be usable for 1087. For other accessory uses, a larger front yard. It makes the lot area, or the actual usable area. And typically with flag lots, the usable area of the flag lot is not the pole portion of the flag lot. Generally speaking, the pole portion, the primary intention of that pole portion is for access and access only. You're typically precluded from construction of any other structures other than utilities and a driveway, which would provide access. What we're doing is creating a larger flag for 1087. And that larger flag area results in more usable area for 1087.
So Eric, if I could, because that's a really good description, and Ryan, if you don't mind, if I could just jump in here. So in essence, what we're trying to do is just clean up the lot lines, create two rectangular plots, and most importantly, treat those lot lines the way the property has been used for the last couple of decades. 1087 has always used the parking area to the right of our garage. We just want to make that formal. And the garden has been there, that predates us. Mary Bundy had put it in. We just want to make sure that we maintain that, knowing full well that the pole, Eric, you had a better term for it, but the pole of the flagpole is not really usable space for 1087. So it was really simplifying it and putting it back the way the land is being used.
Thank you, Judd. Eric, we want to go to the next slide. I think we'll show the after condition. Again, here you could see outlined in dark red, the new configuration, and then in the hatched areas showing the areas that have been switched between them. Eric, maybe this would be a good opportunity just to go through quickly. I know you did mention the number value for the slight height to setback ratio variance that is caused by shifting this line, but perhaps you want to just go through quickly the variances that will be the revisions to the existing variances that we're requesting here as part of this lot line adjustment.
Certainly. So post lot line adjustment, there are going to be several existing variances. And aside from the one proposed variance that I indicated previously with the garage, we are going to be eliminating one variance. So as a part of the applicant's proposal, the rear lot, which is 1087 Great Road, currently the lot is undersized. A flag lot in this particular zone requires 6 acres. And the lot line adjustment change cannot account or cannot increase the lot size sufficiently to comply with the ordinance requirement. The current lot is undersized. After the subdivision is completed, the lot will remain undersized. So the applicant is requesting variance relief for that particular condition. In addition to that, the minimum required lot depth, which is essentially the body portion or the flag portion of the lot, that lot depth is currently 200 feet. And the applicant's proposal, by adding another 20 feet to essentially the depth of the property, we're increasing the lot depth from 200 feet to about 220 feet. It's still non-conforming for the zone, but the applicant is actually, this proposal is making that condition less non-conforming. In addition to that, the applicant's proposal, the ordinance requires a minimum flagpole of 50 feet. The applicant is proposing a flagpole that's 20 feet wide. Again, typically a 50-foot wide flagpole, the intention of that is to be able to build a driveway, install utilities, and provide whatever access and grading and other things that are generally necessary and associated with driveway or access construction within a 50-foot wide area. 1087 currently does not use that flagpole for access. It uses the existing driveway on 1075, and that condition will not change. The existing driveway will remain and will continue to provide access to 1087. So that's another variance that the applicant is requesting. And finally, the final variance that the applicant is requesting is for the parking setback within the front yard. Currently, the parking setback is 19.2 feet for 1087 Great Road. And the shift to the lot line, that now the parking for 1087 is going to be on the lot line with 1087. So that the applicant is requesting a variance for that existing non-conforming condition. And with respect to lot 18, which is 1075 Great Road.
Mr. I'm sorry. You
That's
said
fine.
that one variance was being eliminated. What one is that?
So that variance is associated with 1075 Great Road.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So
that would be the lot area. It's just, it is currently less than 3 acres, and it will become more 3 acres, and that will be ameliorated.
Correct. Presently, the lot area for 1080 or 1075 Great Road, it's 2.99 acres. 3 acres is required in the zone. The lot line change will increase 1087 to 3.65 acres. So that is an existing non-conforming condition that will actually get better as a result of the application. In addition to that, the required rear setback, which is associated with the existing garage structure, the zone requires, within this particular zone, a setback of 40 feet is required. Moving the lot line closer to that structure will reduce that setback from 40 to 20 feet. So that's another variance that the applicant is requesting. As I indicated previously, the building setback to height ratio, that's going to be reduced from 1 to 1.5 to 1 to 0.97. So that's another variance that's being requested as a result of this application. And then finally, lot 18 also requires and contains several existing non-conforming conditions. And they're primarily associated with that front parking area, which is partly located on 1075 and on 1087 Great Road. That front gravel area that somewhat parallels Great Road, that parking area is located in the front yard. The minimum front setback required for the parking area is supposed to be 35 feet. It's currently 26.6 feet. The applicant is not proposing any changes. That existing non-conforming condition will remain. However, it does require variance relief. And currently the side yard setback for the parking area, that existing parking area actually is across the current lot line. So there's a 0 side yard setback where 15 feet, where 40 feet is required in the zone. The applicant's change, although we cannot provide that minimum 40-foot side yard setback, we are making that condition better, because the change to the lot line by reducing the flagstaff down to 20 feet, we are going to create a slightly larger setback. Although it's non-conforming to the zone, it will not be 40 feet, and the applicant does require variance relief. And the applicant also requires 2 additional variance relief, and these are, again, their existing non-conforming condition, and they're associated again with the rear setback for the parking area. Presently, 35 feet is required, and the applicant's proposal will reduce the existing parking setback from 42.2 feet to 22.2 feet. That does require variance relief. And then the final variance is associated with this project is the maximum lot coverage. By increasing the size of 1075 Great Road, the applicant is actually going to reduce the lot coverage, even though we're not reducing or removing any improvements on the property. In this particular zone, the maximum lot coverage that's permitted is 17%. The current lot coverage is 23%. And by increasing the lot area, the lot coverage is going to be reduced from 23 to 19.4%. That's a proposed condition that the applicant cannot comply or cannot make compliant with the ordinance. And the applicant is requesting variance relief for that condition also. And that's a summary of all of the variance relief that's being requested.
Okay, Mr. Rarian, I'm not sure I completely followed everything. The last one on the MIC, which lot's that for? Is that for the front lot?
No, that's for the rear lot. I'm sorry. Yes, that is
Yes,
for
the front. The front lot is being reduced from 22.8 to 19.3.
19.3. And 17 is permitted.
Correct.
I'm not sure you need a variance for that. I mean,
I would agree with you, Mr. Mueller. I was just really going through the changes to the existing. So as far as new variances go, just to be clear, the front lot, looking at the left, in that left condition, that red box is too small. In the right condition, it is large enough. It meets the 3-acre requirement and it is conforming. The right condition on lot area is non-conforming in both scenarios. By moving from left to right for the lot area, the setbacks for the back house for parking improve by 20 feet, and on the left get worse by 20 feet. That also creates that height to setback ratio. As I think you heard Eric state, the idea behind height to setback is to govern the height as it relates to other uses and buildings. Here, we're not changing anything with these buildings. It's just that the line is moved, and hopefully you heard some of the reasoning to kind of level set that line better between those two uses to allow the back user to have some parking and more usable area. By doing that, by moving it 20 feet, it does create a slight height to setback ratio issue, but it is quite unique to look at height to setback, not in the context of building something or not in the context of making something taller or bringing it closer to another structure. This is just created by changing the lot line.
Okay, and if I could ask Mr. Ruparian just a couple more questions. You had testified about the side yard setback at 40 feet required. It's still non-conforming, but not as non-conforming. Which lot is that for?
So that is for the front lot, and that is the parking setback. So
Oh, I thought that was-
currently,
I'm sorry, it's the,
No,
the,
what about the side?
parking area?
What about the side yard setback? I thought you had said 40 feet.
it's the rear setback from the garage to the back lot line. 35 feet is required, existing is 40, 20 is proposed. When we
Right,
move
right.
that
I
lot.
understand that. I think right.
Mr. Cohen, I want to recognize Mr. Cohen. What's up?
Yeah, Mr. Rupnarian actually did also indicate a side yard setback variance for the front parking area. The one that's also non-conforming because it comes too close to the Great Road. And I want to hear some testimony. We haven't heard anything about why you need that front parking area. It was pointed out in staff's report that it seems to have no purpose, and it's got these nonconformities associated with it, including the nonconformity for maximum impervious coverage. So I would like to hear some testimony about why that front parking area is needed.
Certainly, maybe we can bring Mr.
Mr.
Linville, Judd, if you want to address what that's been used historically for.
Thank you, Ron. So we weren't aware that it was a nonconformity, but as I was raising 3 daughters, soccer and lacrosse teams would come to our house for parties. We needed parking. The front pasture would flood. That was not good parking. We put down wood chips so people could come into our driveway, make a left, go north, and park their cars and come to our parties. The barn / garage was used for those parties, as well as our house, everything from holiday parties to other celebrations. Once we realized that the wood chips were getting basically thrown down to the front pasture, we put down some gravel and then put wood chips on top of it. Right now, we've not put wood chips for some time. So to answer your question, the purpose of it was for parking. It is not an essential piece of parking property. It's used sporadically.
So, yeah, I would suggest, at least one condition. First of all, you're selling this property, right? So it's not
we're not
terribly relevant how you were.
No, they're selling the back property. They're living in the
Oh,
front.
I thought
This is-
1075 was on the market. Okay. I still think this is certainly worth a discussion as to whether you could convert that to be some kind of stabilized base rather than a gravel area, because it will get you conforming as to impervious coverage. I think it's a small ask on our part. I think the application makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, but I think this one feature of the property is troubling to me, and it sounds like it's easily fixed. And I would suggest that as a condition of approval, that be converted to something that's pervious only if it's only for occasional use, that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, and a stabilized base also will drain better, and you won't have anything washing off in deluges. You won't have wood chips or gravel in the lower 48 or what, however you think of the property to the south of you. And yeah, that's a great suggestion, David.
Madam Chair, I care deeply about that front pasture and protecting it. I fully understand, and I understand your concern. And by the way, the 3 daughters have moved on and the parties have become less frequent. So understand the request.
I mean, the alternative is just to make it back to pasture. Seems to me quite unusual where you would basically have a stabilized base for parking that really appears to be unnecessary. And it would be quite unusual for a single family residence. I just throw that out.
So I honestly, I was thinking almost the same thing, that, the effort to kind of dig it up and replace it with something for parking rather than, some combination of not further improving it. We always talk about the creep of gravel towards parking. The opposite does occur as well, and perhaps some combination of not improving it further or maintaining it, and some kind of, I'll say, pasteurization of it rather than a full. There's a bit of a concern that do that and dig it up with as a stabilized surface is a big undertaking for something that's not used quite often. That maybe it's something kind of in between that we could work out with engineering.
Ms.
I'm
Cronin,
fine with getting rid of it altogether. Yes, that'd be fine.
And we do care deeply about the front pasture and how it looks.
Good. All right, so are you pretty much finished, Mr. Kennedy? Are you ready to take
We
questions
are.
from board members?
We are. Maybe I'll just very quickly go through some of the other. There's a few other notes in the engineering report that perhaps we didn't actually get to. Most of them were cleanup items. I'll say we did speak to the fire official. I know he didn't do a memo here, but the existing condition of the shared driveway essentially is what it is. He did not express any concerns. We talked to him about getting a fire apparatus out there. That is, again, the existing condition. We would prefer not to add more impervious surface to increase the size of that shared driveway from what it currently is. And there's a request for a condition to have grant an easement at some point in the future for a bike path along Great Road. It's our hope that at some time in our lifetimes or Mr. Linville's lifetime that we get to that bike path at this part of Great Road. It does add a little bit of a complication. So if the board would entertain a condition that, when the road is ready, we would certainly do it. Or if that's an option versus kind of an indeterminate easement now, not knowing how the path exactly would be designed, we'll follow your lead there. But certainly we're in favor of a bike path along Great Road. There's just a bit of a concern that if it doesn't actually come to fruition, we're stuck with kind of an oddly out of place easement that maybe doesn't quite line up even with what the bike path will look like when it's done. But certainly as a condition, we welcome the bike path hopefully soon. And of course, the other conditions. Approval of the deeds.
Ryan,
yes,
you're talking about just an easement, not actually construction at some future point. That would be the municipality, I take it.
Well, that's correct. We're not looking to build it, but we're just,
okay.
we believe it's the actual deeded property interest is perhaps also could be a ways off, and it could be a condition that that it be completed when the project actually happens, rather than having kind of an orphaned easement now. But if again, that's just we prefer to do that part later too, if that's an option.
Mr. Purcell?
Madam Chair,
And Jim,
I'm sorry. Yep.
Yep. Do you swear or affirm in testimony about to give will be the truth?
I do.
So sworn.
I would just like to point out that the master plan envisions a bicycle path along here, and a bicycle path along here cannot be built until we obtain the easements to build it. So the point is, this is an opportunity now as a new subdivision is being filed in the courthouse to obtain an easement. And we would entertain that a 10-foot easement along the frontage would be sufficient for a bike path and its slope. We had discussed this with the applicant several months ago when they were planning to put a driveway in. And I would representing the municipality and the engineer's office really much prefer having the easement in place now.
Understood.
As we have it, we do have it on the adjoining property already.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purcell. Mr. Cohen?
This is kind of a related issue. One of the other items in the engineering report was a suggestion that they were not aware that there's any kind of easement for this shared driveway currently, and that should be something that is put in place as part of this application if it's granted. Yeah.
Understood. There is an easement because it does also not only run to the benefit of the back lot owner, but also the owner just below this property as well. So we can certainly, if there are any cleanup items related to that caused by the subdivision, we will do that as a modification. But there is an easement now.
There is an existing easement that was not indicated.
Eric,
Ryan,
can you confirm that, please? My understanding is there is. To the extent there isn't, we'll certainly agree to a condition that there be one.
Yes,
it is a necessity for these three properties.
It's certainly not shown on.
Property. I'm sorry.
Sorry,
There's
Mr.
been an
Linville, go ahead.
easement. Thank you. There's been an easement between 1075, 1087, and 1061, the Bonds property since the time I moved in, so almost 30 years. So I'm sorry, it's not.
It should be on the
make sure I get
plan. That kind of thing should be shown on the plans. So, and I have one more comment related to the easements, which is the way that I understand this gravel area to the east of 1075's garage is currently used for the benefit of 1087. The movement of the property line by 20 feet still leaves 20 feet of gravel to the east of that garage, which I'm thinking is very likely to continue to be used by 1087, because no one's going to know exactly where the line falls. So I would suggest, as long as we're cleaning up easements, that there be, recognition that either take out the gravel that's between the property line and the garage, so there's not a temptation to use it, or grant the easement, one or the other. But I think that's.
Mr. Cohen, I think that's very well articulated, and we would certainly agree to that as a condition, to the extent that that is property that is used by the back property owner that needs to be by terms of perhaps as if we have to modify the driveway easement, for example, or if not, if it's orphaned, that's not a condition that makes a lot of sense. So I think that's well stated.
So Ryan, I respectfully disagree with the council. There is a garage facing east that uses part of that driveway. And I'll point out, we've lived there for 30 years with 3 property owners, all of whom have lived there for decades. And we've been able to live very well with easements. The driveway that goes to 1087, we're trying to give them more parking space. There's additional gravel that's required to get out of the garage on the garage that faces to the east. So Ryan, that's not actually something that I'd be willing to give up.
So with apologies, then you have to maybe just clarify one more time. On that side of the garage, there is also a garage door that you would access from essentially the rear property for vehicular purposes.
It's part of 1075's garage. There's 3 garage bays facing south. There's 1 garage bay facing east. The one facing east will still need to use part of that driveway. What we're trying to do is create a nice rectangle and a parking space, which is how 1087 tenants have used that space, again, without any problem, and how the Bundys used it us and moved to the cottage.
So John, if you want to slip to that slide that just shows a close-up of that, and to Mr. Cohen's point, that is, I guess, essentially option A under his point that easement would be reflected, that if it doesn't already.
Exactly. I'm indifferent as to how that's used. It just needs to be legally correct.
Yes.
We will ensure that is the case as a condition. We'll work with Mr. Muller's office to confirm that he agrees that the easement provides that.
Great.
Thank you. I do believe we got. I was going to say I believe we got through all of the points in the engineering memo. To the extent there are other questions, we would be happy to answer them.
I would just like to point out, if we could make it as a condition, that there are discrepancies between what's on the plan and what's in the table. And I even heard different numbers this evening. If we could make a condition that we at the municipality and the professionals for the applicant come to a resolution of getting those numbers exactly accurate, it would we could get that onto the plan so that it's codified or recorded that way.
100% agreed.
Thank you.
Jim, I'm sorry. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
There are discrepancies between the bulk standards in the table, bulk standards shown on the dimensions shown on the plans, and also in what was testified to this evening. Those need to be reconciled before this subdivision gets recorded. I'd also like to point out that Mr. Rupnarain testified that they need a variance for the flag, the pole width. They do not. The pole width is allowed to be 20 feet. It's supposed to, the 50 feet he was referring to is that you have to demonstrate that a pole of 50 feet can be created, but it can be reduced to 20 feet. And so the pole is not does not require a variance.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, Jim, even when you're sick as a dog with COVID, you do great work. Are there other, Mr. O'Donnell? You're on mute, unfortunately.
Thank you. I think I'd like to follow up something with that Jim just said and make sure that I'm clear on this. So for the pole section, 20 feet is allowable. I'm just thinking that, you know, if far in the future when these properties are owned by different people, if the owner of 1087 wants to put a driveway there, that's enough room, and you know there are no problems with using that space. That's fine.
That entire pole would have to be stabilized, however, because you have to have a 12-foot travel way and a 20-foot stabilized area for emergency vehicle access. But that's the reason 20 feet is the minimum.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. That answers my question.
Other questions from board members? Mr. Quinn.
Yes, I was confused during the testimony about the eventual size of both lots. If we could just go over those numbers. It seemed that the applicant's representative said that one would decrease and then gave two numbers that were increased. So if you could just tell us what the current acreage is for each and what the proposed acreage would be upon approval.
I will summarize what was testified to rather than just be clear. I'm not giving testimony here. The existing rear lot is 2.19 acres. It is being reduced to 1.55 acres. Eric, stop me if I get any of this wrong. The front lot is 2.99 acres, a non-conforming size, and is being increased to 3.64 acres. Those other numbers that we discussed were the usable spaces or the swap areas. I apologize if that was confusing, but the front one gets bigger from not conforming to conforming, and the back one gets smaller from non-conforming to slightly more non-conforming.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Dobermils.
Yeah, I just wanted the acreage, if you use the acreage numbers, that's part of the calculations that need to be corrected. So the square footage numbers on the chart on sheet 2 are correct. The acreage numbers there's a slight variation there. So those numbers that were just indicated are very close, but they're not perfectly accurate. So that's part of what needs to be clarified.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from board members? Then Mr. Muller, would you like to quickly summarize?
Do we have any members of the public here?
Public
Oh,
comment?
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I looked over there a couple of minutes ago. We do in fact have members of the public. So thanks, Mr. Cohen. If any members of the public wish to speak on the record, now is your opportunity to do so. So if you'd like to speak, please click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen so that we can bring you over to testify. I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand. Going once, going twice. Okay, I will close the public portion of the meeting, seeing that no one has an interest in testifying. Do we want to make a motion and second it before going through potential conditions?
I think that's the best practice.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the subdivision with.
Moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Mr.
second.
O'Donnell. Thank you both. Jerry, would you summarize conditions, please?
Yeah, before that, I'd like to go through the variances if I can, because
Oh, of course, yes.
a lot of testimony about them. I think it's
Yes.
a bit confusing. I think the best bet is working from the report from Jim and Derek in their section 3, which is on page 2. They list required, existing, and proposed for lot 18, which is 1075. That's the front lot, and for lot 19, which is 1087, which is the rear lot. So the conditions, the rear setback goes, and basically the nonconformities for which variances are necessary have been highlighted. So the rear setback it goes from 40 feet to 20 feet. Is that a parking setback or just
That is the structure setback for the rear garage.
Correct. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, so that's one. And then the height to setback ratio, we talked about that. That's also required. Then the parking setbacks, and this is still lot 1075. The 35 feet in the front, 26 feet, 0.6 feet is existing, 26.6 feet is proposed. And that's true for all. Well, that's true for that, and it's true for the second one, which is the parking setback. I think these are existing, and I don't think a variance is necessary for the first two.
But Jerry, that was the one that we were proposing a condition that
Right.
criteria be eliminated.
Yeah.
So no variance is needed for that first one, but that would be a condition essentially that would almost essentially eliminate that.
Yeah, exactly. And then the third is the parking setback, 35 feet. For the rear, 42.1 feet, goes to 22.1 feet, and that's for, that's a parking setback also. Oh yeah, of course it says parking setback, so that's necessary. Then the MIC, it goes from 22.8 to 19.3, while 17% is required. I don't think you need a variance for that because you're reducing the degree of nonconformity.
But again, the condition to remove some of the driveway may.
It may actually become conforming.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
The data needs to be updated.
And then
Correct.
For lot 19, this is going on in Jim and Derek's memo, still section 3.0 on page 2. A lot area for the rear lot goes from 4 acres, 6 acres is actually required for the reasons that are laid out in the report. And it goes from 2.19 to 1.55, so that's required.
And Jerry, that may be actually 1.54 in order to make the numbers match.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Dan. And then the lot depth goes from 300, existing is 201 and proposes 221. I don't think a variance is necessary for that because the degree of nonconformity is being reduced.
I'm in agreement there too.
Okay. Lot frontage goes from 100 feet to 20 feet. That's required.
That is also not a variance condition.
That's not required, right?
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Yes.
And then the last one would be the ameliorated parking setback, which may perhaps not need a variance, going from 19.2 to 39.2 feet for front parking setback. Still under 40, but it is a better condition and perhaps does not need a variance.
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
I'll also note there's another, the condition of not having the driveway in the flagpole is an existing variance condition, but I would suggest that that is not being changed by this,
Yeah,
and similarly would not need a variance.
I don't think you need a variance for that. Let me see. Just bear with me. Then on page 5 of the memo, it says a variance is required for the acreage of the flag portion. Jim, you agree with that? Well, this is your memo, yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then, and just going on in terms of the memo. Bear with me. Now I'm shifting to the conditions, and I might wind up going back to the variances also. The discrepancies, this is page 5 of Jim's memo. In his number 4, says drivers serving the flag lot must provide a 12-foot wide paved or stone cartway with a minimum 20-foot wide stabilized area capable of supporting a 20-ton fire truck. So subdivision plan must be revised to indicate that this being provided. That should be a condition, Jim?
I believe I heard Mr. Kennedy say that there's been discussion with the fire officials that it will not be necessary, but I would like to see that in writing.
We can provide certainly something from Mr. Novak on that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Although,
file.
to be honest with you, if we had to pave that and make a new driveway there, we would not be continuing with the application. That's just a lot of pavement and would remove the benefit of this lot line change. I'll tell you that.
That's a fire code official decision anyway. It's not, I'm not concerned about it.
Okay. Do you want something in writing on that, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. And then the discrepancies between the plan and the bulk zoning table, which is your 8, we've talked about that. Then under staff comments on page 6, it says table of impervious areas indicates an increase. Staff has been advised that the table is an error. No new impervious areas are proposed.
That'll just have to be fixed on the plan.
Okay, fixed on plan. Yep.
Yeah.
Go on. Then, Jim, under the staff comments, the second one, under E says approval of this application shall be for the lot line adjustment only. I'm not sure exactly what you meant by that.
Well, that was a caveat in case there was because the plan showed that there was increase in impervious areas, but we couldn't determine where they were. It was a caveat saying that the planning board should if they approve this, should be approving the lot line adjustment only, not any site improvements that may or may not be depicted on the plan.
Okay, so we don't have to have a condition for that.
As long as we're comfortable that there are no site improvements proposed, but we couldn't find any, but the table indicated that there were increases in impervious areas, so
right.
We were confused.
Yep. Bear with me. Okay. Then there's under H is the master plan, but I'll get to that. That's in my notes. Then there's a number of submission waivers that are in section 5 of Jim and Derek's report dealing with fire protection plan not submitted. Then Property owners list within 200 feet. I didn't quite understand that. How could they not submit a property owners list within 200 feet?
The minor subdivision does not require a property owners list, but it's on the checklist.
Okay, okay.
And we certainly have one. We used it to notice it. It's just whether it be on the plans or not.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay, and then information about steep slopes, rock outcroppings, contours of site, location of sanitary and water surfaces, location of tree masses, soil. Those are the ones that for which a submission waivers are required. And then,
Yeah, we're just recommending that they be granted.
Yep.
And as you know, the planning board is the authority that grants those, not staff.
Yep, absolutely. And then under 6, subdivision plan shall be revised to indicate the correct variances. Okay, that's fine. Shall be revised to include an access easement granted to lot 19. Which one is that? Is that the?
That's the back lot, the flag
back
lot,
lot,
10
yeah.
1080.
For the driveway, and we're going to discuss that in a moment when I get to my notes. Correct the discrepancies, reconcile the calculation of impervious areas on each lot to show no increase. Okay. I think those are all fine.
There also need to be an easement for the water line.
Yeah, I missed that.
Correct.
Dan Dobromilski picked that one up.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to Dan's in a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, and then 6.5 for the bike path, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that'll be 6.6. Deeds subject to review and approval of the board attorney and land use engineer. Then just going on to Dan's. Okay, so we have the access easement we talked about, and then the easement for the water line. We talked, Dan also suggests about the gravel being reduced. Are we comfortable with not reducing it? Although in the front, it's going to be.
That's what we're talking about, the
In
front.
the front, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
But they're also going to correct the plan where it says that the rear gravel was going to be removed to say that it's
Right.
not the case.
Yeah, and let me just go over my notes, because I think we deal a lot with them as well. Correct the drawings which show that the gravel area is being removed. Basically, how would you describe that gravel area? Would it be to the south of the garage and the and
The
behind-
gravel area being added to lot 19 shown to be removed will not be removed.
Oh, okay.
There's actually a shaded area on the plan, which I think was intended to denote the gravel being removed. And so that, I think it's that shaded area that has to be removed. I mean, that,
Okay.
The note will be removed. Yeah.
well, but also the shading, because
And the shading, yes.
the shading is meaningless if the note's removed.
Correct.
Okay, the front parking area is going to be converted to pasture, and that will be worked out with the engineering department. Then the bike path easement will be provided now, 10 feet along the frontage, subject to Jim's approval, or would that be Dan's approval, Jim?
Say the municipal engineer.
Okay,
Punt it to Dan.
then the easement for the shared driveway, again, would be subject to the municipal engineer's approval. That's to the extent necessary, and because it might already be one, it might have to be modified. And then an easement for 1075 use of gravel between 1075 garage and the back lot. That's necessary. And then we talked about the staff and professionals resolving the discrepancies between the bulk standards on the table and the plans. And sheet 2 square footage numbers on the those are corrected and the plan should be corrected. And that's it for me. So we have the minor site plan, the waivers we talked about,
Subdivision.
mission waivers we talked about, and the conditions.
Minor subdivision.
Oh, I'm sorry, minor
Yeah,
site.
you said site plan.
Yeah, right. And as I say, I don't have anything further.
All right, so I believe it was moved by Mr. Cohen and second.
Louise, we're having, at least I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yes.
I know, everybody froze on my screen too. Can you hear me
We
now?
can hear you now.
Yes.
Yes, you're good.
This has been moved and seconded.
I think Kerry, you can call the roll.
By Mr.
Okay.
Cohen and seconded by Mr. O'Donnell. Is that correct? It is
Yes,
time to call the roll. Yes, thank you.
thank you. Ms. Capizoli,
Yes.
Mr. Chow,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Unmute him.
Yes, yes,
Ms. Sachs, Mr. Texarney,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
Mr. Bodekheimer, and Mrs. Wilson.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
accommodating all of these conditions. Thanks for taking up the travel and correcting numbers and such. We appreciate it. And is there any other business tonight?
Not that
Seeing
I'm
none,
aware of.
Mr. Cohen,
Move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
Great
Good night, everyone.
explanation,
Good night.
Mr.
Feel better, Jim.
Dobromelski.
Yeah,
I feel fine. I feel
Good.
fine. It's just annoying.